come fly Emirates economy class with me. Today, I'll start by showing you my 777-300ER flight from Dubai to the Maldives, which will be followed by my A380 flight from Amman to Dubai. Come along and fly to paradise with me. So, let's start with Emirates check-in at Dubai International Airport. Emirates is trying to go paperless, so part of that is introducing this huge self-check-in area where you pick up your boarding pass, you check your bag in, so let's see how that works today. And guess what? Self-check-in worked and was pretty quick today. Our flight is leaving after the main morning rush, which is why check-in is a bit more calm. But normally it can be quite busy here, so I would arrive with a little bit more notice. But I always arrive last second, so it's smart of me to book a later flight when it won't be as busy, and then we'll end up missing it. One thing to mention here is that just like on Qatar Airways and Etihad, Emirates strangely does not allow personal items in economy class, meaning you can only bring one item on board regardless of size. The weight limit is also a low 7 kilos. This has never been enforced for me, but it's good to be aware of. In no time, we're past security and immigration, heading to our gate. Of course, there are some decent priority pass lounges here, specifically the Marhaba lounge, that you can get into whatever cabin you're flying, but I don't think we're gonna bother. Boarding is in 30 minutes, so we're gonna try to find some other decent cafe that might have a nice drink. That's my new favorite thing before, especially an economy class flight, to make it feel a bit like more fun and fancy, to get some nice drink and bring it on board. Back in 2017, the first time I recorded an economy class comparison like this, I was really hating on Dubai Airport, but over the years, it's grown on me. Nowadays, I think it's incredibly efficient for such a big and busy airport, although it isn't as visually stunning in many parts as other airports in the region. I definitely don't mind flying to or from here or transiting, just because many of the processes are so fast. We went from check-in through immigration and security in 5 minutes. So the obvious problem with this review is that generally I find Emirates 777 quite cramped if it's a full flight. I haven't flown it on a full flight in like 6 years, thankfully. So every time I review it, I'm like, it's fantastic. But that's a big caveat. Whenever you can, take the A380 over Emirates 777. And I'm saying this before I even board. On Emirates, you usually have high odds of getting a regular jetway and avoiding a bus gate, but the exception is if you're flying to leisure or very low-yield destinations, think certain African destinations or vacation places like the Seychelles, or in my case, the Maldives. It's about a 20-minute ride to the aircraft today, which would be horrible in a crowded bus if the flight was full, but luckily today, we almost have a private 777. Pro tip, always take the later of the 2 morning flights on Emirates to the Maldives if you have a choice. The earlier flight is almost always packed, especially since it continues to Sri Lanka, while the one that leaves just 30 minutes later is almost always empty. Although it's quite a long bus ride to our aircraft, the views are absolutely stunning. Today, we're on board Emirates' most common 777-300ER configuration, which is one of 5 different ones found on this aircraft. Today, I'm in my usual first choice of seat, the last row of any cabin. This time, it's 36 kilo, ironically the exact same seat number I had on Qatar Airways A350-1000 that I posted in my previous video. If you're on a long flight and traveling with another person, you might want to try to snag these rows with 2 seats by the windows toward the back, since you won't be bothered by anyone else. I'm going to show the cabin any second, but I'm also placing a card at the top which shows my previous Emirates 777 economy class in a newer, sleeker cabin than the one you're about to see. Save that for later so you can compare it after this video and get to see 2 different Emirates 777 economy class seats. We have approximately 300 seats depending on the configuration, and all of them have 8 lavatories in economy, even though only 6 are pictured here. The last 2 are at the back. That's 1 lavatory per 38 passengers, which is an excellent ratio. Now for a useful new video section I'm trying out, let's quickly go to the 60-second site score. Emirates makes it so easy and quick to book flights. You get a great overview of what's included and what's different between different fares. And once you've booked, you can select your seat and special meals online, as well as cancel and make any changes. You can even get a 3D view of the specific seat that you've chosen. While we're on this, I should also mention that you can pre-check the menu even before booking your ticket on any Emirates flight via their website. Simply go to this page or Google Emirates menu, then enter the flight you want to check the menu for, and ta-da. Overall, I think I've called Emirates twice in my life across dozens of flights with them. That tells you how easy they make it to arrange everything you want online. So when it comes to Emirates website, their checkout process, and the booking management section, I have no complaints whatsoever. Now welcome on board. Emirates has such a comfortable seat in economy class. It offers great back support, a massive entertainment screen, and an adjustable headrest that can help get you comfy. The legroom is just okay on the 777, and you'll see later in the video how this exact same seat is even more comfortable on the A380 for a variety of reasons. Waiting at your seat, you have an extremely plasticky pillow, a blanket, and headphones. It's hard to complain about that on a 4-hour flight, but if anything could be easily upgraded on Emirates, I'd say they should upgrade to a more comfortable, less scratchy pillowcase, to be honest. Of course, as av geeks, we all love a good retro touch when flying. In this case, that's the fact that Emirates still has in-flight shopping magazines. I peruse mine and find this. Oh my god, my av geek heart is struggling so hard to resist, even though luggage tags are the last thing I need. Due to congestion at the airport, we have to wait 30 minutes to push back, so I guess everyone's on the other flight since no one showed up to this one, besides one special surprise passenger you'll see shortly. Our flight starts with gorgeous views of Oman. Since it's a very empty flight, the meal service starts almost immediately after takeoff. I've pre-ordered my regular special meal, VGML, and it is awesome. I'll talk more about why I love Emirates catering on my next flight, but just from what you see here, the portion is big, you get metal cutlery, what's not to love? I also grab a Diet 7-Up because Emirates partners with Pepsi instead of Coca-Cola. One of my favorite things about Emirates is that they offer free Polaroids on request. The entire crew on this flight is super sweet and we have a nice chat. For some reason, Emirates is the airline where I'm most often mistaken for being off-duty crew, so everyone wants to give me VIP treatment, and then I reveal I don't work for the airline and they don't believe me. I've tried to figure out why, and I guess it's because I'm quite young yet so familiar with everything, so they just assume I must be an insider in some way. Speaking of someone being familiar, do you recognize this guy? So, the biggest plot twist of the century, there's like 40 people on this flight. And look who else is here with me. You all know who this is. Check it out.
Hey, what a surprise. What a surprise. And if Dan didn't come down to the back, I wouldn't know Dan's on this flight. And what a surprise to me, another aviation passionate YouTuber here.
Yeah.
One thing I was telling Dan is, I noticed on many flights on Emirates, because I live in Dubai, I'm based in there, so Emirates is my hometown carrier, how good a condition the carpet is. Like, consider their 777's 10 years old or something even more than that, and they did a good job thoroughly cleaning the carpet. I've done a lot of other airlines flights that, you know, after they turn around the plane, the carpet's not clean. There's a lot of crumbs, a lot of little nuts on the floor. So one thing I noticed is that sometimes I wear flip-flop. I always feel comfortable barefoot on the carpet as well.
Yeah. That's actually a really good comment from Sam. Definitely an underrated feature on some of the world's better airlines. By the way, if you want to hear a discussion on redeeming miles for Emirates with Sam, stay tuned for the end. Now here's the thing about Emirates 777. The recline is good in theory, but it's simply so cramped because the seat cushion moves forward when you recline. Combine that with the already not so great legroom and someone reclining in front of you, I'm not gonna lie, you'll be longing for the A380. And what feels like no time, we see the stunning islands of the Maldives below us. "20 minutes later, we touched down on Mala Airport's brand new runway. Now come along to see how the A380 compares, and spoiler, it's a lot better. If you follow me and Oscar on our channel, Oscar and Dan, you might have seen some snippets from the trip that ensued. That was one of the few times I share my location live because it was just too good not to share. And you know, there's already enough information about us out there that we don't need to share where we are right now as well. There are so-called data broker companies that are able to collect so much information about us and then sell it on to companies that might use it for something like selling things to us, or far worse things like identity theft. Luckily, there's an easy way to reclaim your personal information through today's video sponsor, Incogni. They help protect you from all types of scary scenarios involving your personal data. For example, data brokers have been known to sell social security numbers or foreign equivalents to criminals so they can apply for loans in your name. Even scarier, this data being online can make something as mundane as a road rage incident lead to someone finding your address and coming to your house. Thankfully, Incogni can help you remove information like your address, like your social security number, and like any other personal details from the internet. It's so easy. You sign up, they scan the internet for your personal information, and then they send removal requests to all those companies to make sure that it's taken off the web. If those companies don't comply, Incogni will chase them down until it is gone. You can get 60% off an annual Incogni plan at incogni.com/nonstopdan or by clicking that link at the top of the description right now. Seriously, don't procrastinate getting back your control over your personal information. Okay, so we've done the boring 777. It is now Emirates A380 time, and it really doesn't matter the cabin. Anytime I'm flying an A380, I'm just so happy and excited. And today, what a luxury, I'm flying an A380 on like a 2.5-hour flight. Having arrived into Jordan on a Qatar Airways A320 from my previous video, leaving on an A380 on a similar length flight is a wild feeling, and that is the problem. I'm gonna give my conclusion away here, but what I've been saying since my very first Middle Eastern comparison still stands true. The A380 is just superior in every way. You simply cannot compete with it regardless of how good everything else is. So considering that Emirates has over 100 A380s, while pretty much every other airline has a dozen or less, that makes Emirates my economy class airline of choice. Let me show you why. Look at this rude construction blocking a great viewpoint of our aircraft, but doesn't matter. Amman Airport has these huge windows, so all along you get the most amazing view of your plane, and it just looks so massive. It's right next to a 737, which makes it feel even more like wow. This A380 is registered Alpha 6 Echo Echo Mike, and it's middle-aged as far as Emirates A380s go. This is actually one of Emirates' original ultra-long-haul A380s, which is mainly used on flights over 12 hours. For that reason, there's a massive crew rest at the back that sacrifices 4 rows of economy class. That's an interesting choice since it sacrifices 16 seats. Emirates is sacrificing more seats here than Gothenburg sees in an entire week. That's an inside joke for the listeners of my #1 ranking aviation podcast, On Air with Dan and Alex. As far as Emirates A380s, this configuration is very common, and regardless, you probably don't want to sit in the last 4 rows in the center of the cabin on the other configurations anyway. There are many fantastic seats here, with window seats in rows 68 and 81 deserving special shoutouts for having windows, but also unlimited legroom, at least on certain configurations. As far as free seats, I love the last rows like mine today, 79, specifically 79 Alpha. You're seated next to the galley, so there may be more noise, but it's also far more private because of that. On the A380, there are 9 lavatories on the lower deck of this most common configuration. Divided by approximately 400 passengers, we get a ratio of 1 lavatory for 44 passengers, which is quite good. So let's board this beast. Okay, interesting. Check that out. There's no upper deck boarding here in Oman. This is not Emirates' newest A380 cabin, but even with some age, it is beautiful. One thing you've got to love about Emirates is the consistency of their cabin, since this seat is almost identical to the one I had on my 777. That's a coincidence, but they only have a few different seat models in total. Now check out row 68. How awesome does that window seat look? At least ignoring the fact that you're sitting in the middle of the gigantic A380 wing. I'm in an A/Alpha seat this time, meaning there is a power port in my seat, finally. If you want a window seat, definitely try to choose the A seats on Emirates to ensure you have a power port. Since K/Kilo seats, the window seats on the right side of the plane usually don't have them. Even though this is the same seat as my 777 flight, the legroom is noticeably better. The recline is also out of this world good, definitely among the best economy class recline in the world. And when you're in the last row like me, you really get to benefit from it on the A380. As I was hinting though, it's the A380 that makes this a winner. The lower deck feels so spacious and airy, it genuinely almost makes me want to cry having just come off an A320. This is economy class travel at its best, plain and simple. The ceiling, which houses your individual air vents and reading light, is so high up that even I have to stretch, and I'm 187 centimeters / 6'2". It just doesn't get better than the A380. Today's flight is quite empty again, so I take the chance to have a look at the rear cabin with just 3 rows in the center. This is a fascinating layout with a crew rest back here, and oh boy, those stairs at the back of the A380 always just tease you when you're down here. Even as boarding wraps up and a passenger eventually comes to sit down next to me, well, in the aisle, but still, I almost feel like he isn't there because there is such a sense of space. We eventually push back, have a relatively long taxi to the runway, and start our takeoff roll toward Dubai. After takeoff, I head back to the lavatories, basically just to have an excuse to walk around this beauty a little bit more. Even back here at the very rear, the lavatories are quite spacious and feature toiletries. Once back at my seat, for some reason it takes over an hour for the meal service to start, and that doesn't quite make sense since the flight is so empty, but let me tell you, the meal does not disappoint. I always find that Emirates catering out of Dubai to be fresh and healthy. I love that they serve food in reusable containers, which feels luxurious, and they have metal cutlery. I'm not quite sure how I feel about having sweet and sour twice in one day though, since Qatar Airways served almost the same thing. I feel like I should say this before some genius figures this out in the comments, but yes, Emirates is paying me $99,999 to make this glowing review. And then for those who know the actual truth, this flight was self-funded as always, with no involvement from Emirates. I work the rest of the way to Dubai. I feel like there's not really much to report here besides Emirates charging $10 for Wi-Fi on this flight, although the price changes based on the flight length. And as always, they have free in-flight messaging if you credit your flight to their loyalty program Skywars. In what feels like a blink of an eye, we touch down in Dubai. Shorter A380 legs like this, especially when they're decently empty, genuinely don't warrant paying the massive premium for Emirates business class in my opinion. I barely mentioned it in this video, but as we taxi to the gate, I check out Emirates Ice, and I've said it again and again and again, but Emirates Ice is truly one of the best entertainment systems in the world. That said, Emirates economy class continues to be one of the best ways to fly economy class in the world. In terms of soft product, I'd say Emirates is ever so slightly sharper than Qatar, and combining that with the fact that Emirates' smallest plane is a 777 and the A380 is so prevalent, Emirates is an obvious first choice for me. Your odds of equipment swaps and hence involuntary seat changes are tiny on Emirates, and your odds of a bus gate, especially on an A380, are also small. The problem with Emirates economy class is that it's often quite expensive, so is there a way to get it cheaper? Yes. Sort of.
So I'm also into frequent flyers in the game, and I use 31,250 miles redeem a one-way economy tickets, which is pretty steep because Emirates has this thing. It costs you only 37,500 for a round trip, but it costs you 31,000 for a one-way. It's almost like 80% of the cost of one way. This is one thing Skyward should look at to be competitive, to look at other airlines just about half the cost of a one-way ticket compared to a round trip, because it really is very expensive. And the miles, it's very hard to earn miles on Emirates, and it's really quick to burn the miles.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me in this Emirates economy class review, guys. Basically, you've got the point. Emirates economy class is incredible. But whenever we're talking about Emirates, the question always comes up, but Dan, what about their business class, their first class? I have reviewed both many times. You can check those videos out on my channel if you want. But the thing is, you saw what Sam was saying. Cash tickets on Emirates are not cheap to begin with. Not even points tickets when redeeming through a program like Emirates. Paying for their economy class can be really expensive. Sam paid over 30,000 miles for this flight. I paid less than 20,000. So how did I do that? I used Air Canada Aeroplan, a program I go through in my free guide at the link in the description below. I introduce you to the program, basically how you can buy and redeem points in it wherever you live. And you don't only have to redeem for Emirates economy, you can redeem for their business class and their first class. And in my Points Master program at that link, I go through exactly how to get the best deals, what are the routes, what are the tricks to know. For example, there are some times where you cannot redeem for Emirates business, first class, or economy, but there are other times when it can be a great deal. So let's talk about some examples. What kind of prices are we talking in Emirates business on their A380, the upper deck with the bar, all that cool stuff? Well, you can get from Europe to places in the Middle East like Muscat, Oman, which is an incredible place that I highly recommend you visit. You can go to Saudi Arabia if you're curious about that. You can go to Kuwait, to Bahrain. You can go also to Pakistan, India, of course. And for most of those destinations, we're talking prices of around or a little less than $1,000 each way in Emirates business. And let me tell you, Emirates is one of the most expensive airlines. So if you complete that search yourself and you check, okay, how much would Emirates business be? Let's say from Amsterdam to Muscat, I assure you it will be a lot more than that. You can check out the current price right above my head here. You could also go from the US to Italy on Emirates A380. You can go from New York to Greece on Emirates in business class for about $1,000 each way by buying and redeeming points. You don't need to sign up for credit cards to do this. Anyone, anywhere in the world can master this art. So I'm going to say it again. You can take my free starter guide, a 3-video series at the link in the description below. And if you want, you can enter your email. That course will be sent in about 10 minutes to your inbox. Then you can check out the full Points Master program where I teach you not only how to redeem for Emirates, but over 70 other airlines across 7 different airline frequent flyer programs. So if that sounds like something for you, make sure to check out that link below in the description or scan the QR code right now. And on that note, I will see you in the next video. Until then, fly safe.